Welcome back to Unleashing. I know it's been a minute, and somebody reminded me the other day that I hadn't made a video in a while. Well, I've been busy non-stop, and this is the first time that I've actually had a little bit of a break here. Just got a shower. I'm at a rest stop, so I figured I would try and catch up. And it can happen a lot of times. I'll be working on something. I'm still trying to put another video out that I've been working on for over a year, and I'm getting sidetracked and kind of stalled on it, and it causes other things to kind of get backed up. So I'm just setting that on the back burner for right now, and when it gets done, it gets done. But in the meantime, try to catch up with just some of the stuff that's taking place right now. The eclipse that just happened. Holy mackerel. The preachers and the pastors, the bigger congregational ones, they're just jumping all over people right now on that whole thing, and I wanted to address that, and I'm going to throw a couple other things in here, but it needs to be talked about. So anyways, I did get to see it when I was back at the place where I was staying. I came out of the garage and I noticed the sun tint was a little bit different, so I'm like, hey, the eclipse. And I looked up with my welding goggles and was able to see part of it, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, no, big time jumping on it, and I want to address that right now. A couple weeks ago I heard Perry Stone talking, and he was talking about more will die or will be taken. And he was talking about the bigwig preachers and pastors that have been through this last generation, your bigger ones that you've heard about, and how they're dying off from old age. And that a new group is going to have to step up to the plate and relieve them basically of duty, be hopefully brought up in the ways of God so this next generation could take off. And Perry was talking about his mentors and some of the others and how some of these big guys have gone down. You guys know what I'm talking about. Tom Horn, Putnam, a lot of these guys, they're passing. Chuck Missler, and it's happened in these last recent years. And while he was saying this, he was saying that he would hope that this next generation of these big-time pastors, would be brought up in the right way and stuff like that. And I listened to it and stuff. And anyways, I have something to say on that. I absolutely hope not. What has been created from that generation, that time, and of course there's a use for everything, but what was created from that is some of the most watered-down and pathetic Christianity that I've ever seen. And for what's coming, that's not going to suffice. It's not going to handle the time ahead. What is going to be able to handle that is your underground churches and your teachers that are ordinary people like us that actually have read the Bible, know it, and during those times are going to be a refuge for others, that they can come to it, and if they're spiritually discerned enough, are going to be having like righteous teaching. It's not going to be off track. Teaching them flat earth or some crazy crap like that is how your salvation is, right? And that is going to be the next phase that takes place, and it's happening right now. And these big wigs, their times come to an end, and they are passing away. Some of them might see the rapture or the start when the tribulation happens, stuff like that. But I absolutely believe that it's coming to an end, and this next phase is coming in, and it will be the last phase. And it's going to be your underground churches worldwide, and it's going to call on every regular person, people that seem small, to be the ones to stand up to the plate, all right? And this isn't random. This is going to come back into the whole eclipse thing. If you guys have seen, there's been several so-called bigger preachers and pastors that have come on, and they're scolding people for looking at the moon and the stars and things like that, and using them as signs and symbols, all right, and determining the rapture and other things like that. And granted, there's a lot of whack stuff out there and sensational stuff where it's over and over and over and over and over again. It's like, okay, come on, dude, take a rest on it. You're not reading into this right. Take it easy there. But there is extreme significance in all of it, and it was made to be seen and recognized, and it served its purpose. Its full purpose, I believe, has not come to full extent yet, but just like the Revelation 12 sign in 2017, it will. And these pastors, these bigwigs, these group of men that Perry Stone will be referring to, right? they can't stand it at all. They're losing their minds because God's showing up to regular individuals with dreams and visions and prophetic meanings and times and things that can help one another, basically the starting of the underground church, right? And they're losing their minds because it's taking the power from them. They've never had any power anyways. Anything that God has given them, but of course they've used it for their money and their splendor and stuff. And I won't say that these guys don't make it to heaven, but there's going to be some shock and awe in heaven when first shall be last and last shall be first. And these guys will see that the very small that God touched, that weren't corrupted, that didn't use it for profit, are going to be ranking higher because they did it honorably, and these guys that made a fortune off of it are going to be, excuse me, sir, that seat doesn't belong to you. You're going to have to move down to the very beginning there. This is for somebody else, right? And that's exactly what's gonna happen. And that time, it's coming to an end. And, you know, the other day I was watching something with Tim Tebow, and I was thinking about, I'm like, good grief, Tim Tebow. I'm like, yeah, nice guy, loves God and everything like that, but I'm like, dude, he doesn't know anything that's going on. Like, if we were gonna have a conversation, it would be night and day difference. He has no idea the world that's really taking place and stuff like that, right? And I'm thinking, that's nuts. But in his defense, I was watching something that popped up right after that, and he's starting that foundation to help children that have been sex trafficked, and he's a name for that, right? He's a voice. He has a platform for that God's given him. And looking at that, it's like, you know, we all have our place and purpose. I have a place and purpose, right? Whatever that is, as well as him. And to throw him out completely would be wrong on my part, because it is serving a purpose. His platform and money and financial and stuff like that is allowed to gather maybe some of those lukewarm Christians, the not the Pentecostal, but the charismatic sort of movement. Ones that have money, ones that might be able to make a difference. Ones that don't know that they could be assassinated instantly by the government, but are ignorant to that. And because of that, it actually makes them more dangerous by not knowing, right? They have a purpose. They have a place. And for me to try and take that away would be just as wrong as these bigwig pastors that are coming out saying, it's wrong for you to look at the eclipse and to think that there's anything of it, right? So, you know, but I'm constantly evaluating myself and how I look at things and everything else. And there's definitely a point and a place and a purpose that God has set for every one of us, and where we stand and where we want to stand mentally and spiritually. He gives us the opportunity to step up further, or to use us if that's as far as we want to go with that. All right. So anyways, about the eclipse, no, it's absolutely significant. So when they are preaching and saying it doesn't mean anything, it just happens to line up, it's one of God's splendors, and you can look at it like that, but does it mean anything, or it's the end, or the rapture's coming? No, don't be looking at that at all. They're absolutely wrong. I didn't get sent out in 2014 for no reason. I haven't done what I've done for over 10 years, sneaking into multiple different places, job 47, trying to witness and reach people in a timeline that is cutting shorter and shorter, that coincidentally lines up with when the Revelation 12 sign happened, the last Pope, which is the false prophet, everything that you guys have seen me talk about that YouTube won't even allow me to talk about on Barack Obama, all right, that you can find on Rumble, and his history and past, and everything that lines up in between that and around that, all significantly within the time that Israel became a nation. It very well is pointing to the end times, and it always has been the entire time. And the reason that these guys are saying this is because they're losing their grasp. Like the Pharisees, when Jesus showed up, he didn't come to them. He knew where their hearts were. He knew that they were about the manna, the fame, the fortune, being credited and things like that. He was going to the smaller people, the regular folks. He was showing them the miracles, the ones that wanted to believe. And they were walking with him, and he found it in there. What were the Pharisees getting? They were getting the power taken from them, which is exactly what's happening right now in this transition that's about to take place. The bigwig pastors and these huge auditoriums of deceit, they're going to be destroyed, knocked down, persecuted, attacked, and the only way to continue the race, which will thrive during the tribulation, is to go underground, is to go undercover. And that's what's happening right now. But the guys that are in charge of that, watching this transition, they're losing their minds. They're absolutely losing their minds, and they're scolding people not to do it more and more and more. So are you wrong for looking at it? No, absolutely not. You're to pay attention to absolutely everything. I watch everything that's going on. If somebody's doing something right, I just watched Trump the other day. Right? It was yesterday. Somebody had shared a video, and it was about Trump talking about how we need to have God back in the country and how it's gone to absolute hell. And until we can start to put those fundamental values back into homes, bring God and the Bible back into schools, it's not going to get fixed. It's a heart problem, right? And I listened to him say this, and he talked for a few minutes on it, and the significance of it, and how important it was. And he's 100% right. Does that mean that I follow Trump wherever he goes and does? No, absolutely not. I follow God. He is my leader. And if somebody wants to say something that's correct, I can commend him for that, and that's good. And if it's going in that direction, it's good. But the second you leech onto somebody and you're following them is the second you can't detach in time when they go off on a wrong track. All right, you need to be able to be free to do that at any time, and that only comes from your leadership coming directly from God. And if somebody starts to go to astray, you step away from it. All right, you don't follow them. That's why I'm constantly saying you don't follow preachers and pastors. You don't follow me. If you want to listen. But your responsibility has always been to have a personal relationship with God, to read the Bible for yourself, to know it like the back of your hand. And from there, you can be dangerous and you can be used. You can be somebody that somebody can come to during these hard times and this next phase that happens, right? When it takes place. And that's what you want to be. That's somebody that can be used by God, right? And there's nobody that can't be if they want to give their hearts to Him. I don't care what your history or your past is. A lot of times you'll see that it's people that have had the darkest past that when they turn fully, they bring the truth. They bring the truth to the front, and they're the most dangerous of all. They're walking with God. They've gone as far bad as it can be, and they can call out the lukewarm and be like, "No, you were actually prey to us. We knew that was a sham the whole time." We have a lot of guys that actually work for us in this dark organization, and they run some of the churches. And this charismatic movement of this once saved, always saved stuff is a total lie, and we could prey on you guys big time. And after getting out of there, being like front hand with like working with Satan, they can actually bring this to the front and talk about it. Something that you should already know, but if you don't, it's a serious relationship, and it always has been. But like I say, the point is that nobody's, if they choose to follow God, nobody's beyond being used by God, and He can do great things with them if they let Him do it. So don't ever let any of these big wigs that think they're big right now, while their reign's coming to an end and they're thrashing, let them stop. And a lot of it has been the seminaries that they go to. All right, when never been to a seminary, right? You guys know me. You've heard me talk long enough on everything. There's nothing that I can't talk about, which is the whole point of my title when I'm flashing things at you. If you want to have a conversation about Nazis on the backside of the moon, me reading Buzz Aldrin's mind, Stargates to Mars, or any other crazy crap that I'm probably going to bring out in this video too, I can talk about it. There's nothing that I can't handle or talk about. I've been trained by God. Never once been in a seminary. Do I have spiritual gifts? The most powerful possibly in the world. And yet, never once have I been in a seminary, all right? And these guys have. And they think that their credentials come from that, from other men ordaining them. I was never ordained by a man. I was ordained by God, and I was anointed by God as a child, as He's grown and raised me, all right? It makes me far more dangerous. And God has done this the entire history of the earth on people that He chooses to use. And there's going to be more when stuff breaks down, because the multitude is enormous that get saved during the tribulation. So He's going to be using people, even people that were left behind. They're going to finally want to get it right and walk with God, right? But this ordaining from these seminaries and stuff, these jokers don't even know that the seminaries have been taken over by the Illuminati a long, long time ago, and Masonic teachings and stuff like that. And a lot of these teachers are giving a lukewarm, watered down, humanistic, not spiritual, looking for meaning that is actually what it meant in the world, but not reality. and it's spread over to so many different things that that it's just polluted everything. And I mean, it's spread to these bigwigs that are coming to an end. They're dying of old age, and it's run its course, right? But just like I saw on Prophecy Watchers about 6 months ago or so, there was a guy on there who had written a book, and Gary Stearman had him on there, and he was talking about giants, and the guy's 6'9", and he was saying from what he understood, from his understanding, it was just metaphorically on the giants inside the Bible, right? As I flashed the title in front of you guys, and you see the one from South Africa that's about 3 feet, and then the one from China that's freaking 50 feet long, footprints, right? That these giants actually are this big, military intelligence that have dealt with and shot some of the smaller ones, the stories from Inner Earth and all that. I mean, it's totally real, right? And these guys are saying, no, that's poo-poo, that can't be, because my understanding is the mass increase that happens with each level of height is too much for the body to handle, so they couldn't be more than that. So you're looking at about 10 feet, 12 feet at the absolute max. These guys don't know that some of these giants were like 2 miles tall, right? And they're trying to control the scenario, and they're teaching that to people, which is creating more of a watered down. And now you're not taking the Bible literalistic, you're taking it as metaphorically on a lot of stuff that needs to be taken literally, right? And it's false teaching. It's false teaching, and it's pampering on stuff that doesn't need to be. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting, and I can't stand it, which has been my whole point. I'm trying to bring the truth. I'm trying to bring the truth in everything, right? And of course, I thought as a younger man, if I just knew enough, if I knew the secrets, that I could save, or I could help save anybody. And of course, boy, have I learned a lesson. It doesn't matter how much I know. I could take you right to the water hole, show you physically, and I've done that with people, exactly what their hang-up is, or what it would take for them to believe. And as soon as they see it, they just stick their nose up and walk away. They still don't want to have anything to do with God. And the truth is that you just can't save everybody. As much as I've tried, I feel like most of it has been a complete failure, and that really sucks, because the amount of work that I've put into it has costed me literally everything. And it's very difficult, but you know, I tried it at least for a good reason. I can say that, you know, I try to save and help all the people that I know, and if there's a few that make it through that, then I guess it'd be worth it, you know, in the end. But it is very frustrating to see that. But it hasn't stopped. It's never stopped ever since he started giving me knowledge. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. It's like tapping a well, and it just keeps coming forth. And if I don't talk fast enough, I start getting backtracked on new things and things that I've learned. It's just like it comes fast. But to bring to the point, that's God taking care of that. These pastors in all these churches, they get a curriculum through their organizations, whether it's Assembly of Gods or whatever else, or their big things, and people will write up their sermons, and all those church organizations will be teaching off that on the Sunday, and then the pastor kind of learns what he's going to say and teaches off that, and every once in a while he'll throw out some of his own stuff, all right? So that is a huge organization of help that's doing that, and they're being told what to say, what to teach on everything, and they'll do it verbatim, word for word, to a plagiarizing point, you know, but it's part of their curriculum that's being written up for them and what they're teaching, and they make buku money from that, right? And that's how they do it. Everything that I teach is coming straight from God. God will show me what to say and talk about each week, or when I'm doing it weekly, which I haven't been, what to say and what to do. And every once in a while I get to throw out a couple things that I want to talk about. But other than that, I'll be in the middle of about to do something that I'm going to talk about. Boom, he'll give me something just like that, and it'll be the discussion. And that is how all the videos that I've ever done have been. It's literally God pointing out what he wants me to talk about, what he wants me to say, and bringing it to the forefront. That is completely different. That's something that your pastors, they can't do. And like I say, it drives them nuts when they see that God is using regular individual people, and he's not using them because they're using it for profit's sake, or false teaching, or watering stuff down, when the actual truth, no matter how hard it is, needs to be sent out there, and God gets to choose that, and the power is being taken from them. It's run its course, like the churches in Revelation 2 and 3. They not only were churches back then in that time, there are also timelines of churches, and I believe personally that they are also individual standpoints on where they are with God. each one of those churches and where you stand. I think it comes down to an individual thing. I believe that the time when I talked to him in 2014, before I was given the vision, when I saw the fire in his eyes, is a reference to the very church that I would be associated with at that time and what I needed to work on, right? Which would be lust and women, all right? And the very fact that he spoke to me in that way lines up with that church. I find that interesting. Not being the Church of Philadelphia, but being the church of, I believe it's Sardis or whatever else, and that being my area of weakness. But I believe that they're not only timelines, they're individual characters and traits and things that belong to the people, and it's very, very individual. But anyways, the point being is God's going to use who he chooses to, and we are in the end times. It really is the last seconds. This is all real, for real. We don't have that much longer. It's going to catch all these guys off surprise. It's all right for you to look at the eclipse and realize it's from God, and what he's doing is definitely pointing to the fact that, hey, Nineveh is about to be judged. Do we know the full extent of it? Can you lock it down like that? No, definitely not. A lot of the stuff you find out afterwards is an after the fact sort of thing. Like, hey, no way. When you break down the time of when this first country was judged, let's say the Ninevehs end up lining up with countries, and God's using the flagship of America and the eclipse as a forefront to warn all the world, since they're all watching, and we're the first ones to go, right? And each one of the Ninevehs, when you go down the sun and break it down in a certain amount of years, the sun went over that certain one at a certain time. That's something you can only find out, right, after the fact. So we don't really know, but paying attention to it, being cautious, being repetitive, turning back to God, doing what you're supposed to, the very same things that you would get from seeing it go over Nineveh and seeing that reference of Jonah, is exactly how you're supposed to take it. And you're not wrong for doing that. And recognizing that we're in the end times is smarter than most of these bigwigs that think that it's just going to continue on, because it's not. So take that, all right, and don't be disheartened, because I know that they attack quite a few people, and a lot of people have been disheartened. Like, I thought the rapture was going to happen on that day. No, it didn't. However, it's very significant, and it's pointed to a time of judgment, and things aren't going to be the same. Look what's taking place right now with the red heifer, the war over in Israel. I believe the whole Gaza attack, that they're going completely through with that, because they're planning on building the temple. And if they were going to do that, and they still had Gaza as a loose end with Hamas there, they'd be getting attacked the whole time when they're trying to build the temple. They're not going to allow that to happen. They're cleaning the place out once and for all. This is getting done with so that they can go forward with it, and they're not going to have a gnat biting on him the whole time, all right? And it's being done, it's being taken, it's being getting ready for place. But to show how close that is, that temple is part of the agreement for the 7 years, which is going to happen after a nuclear exchange worldwide, all right? Am I prepping for things, all right, while we're discussing? Yes, I am. I always am, all right? I don't always say things to everybody, because the second I say something, people start panicking and freaking out. And I don't want anybody to do that. I want you to trust in God with what he can provide and what he can do. But it's been on my heart now for over a year to prep. And the fact that he's allowing that to happen, this is the first decent paying job that I've ever had in my entire life. And things seem to be going good right now, and it's allowing me to get some preps and things in order. And the very point is that we don't know how much we're going to see before that nuclear exchange. I believe by the time the nuclear exchange happens, this nuclear exchange worldwide that takes place from the insiders, all right, that the preachers and stuff don't know about, from the insiders, they have already said that that is what's going to bring everybody to the table. That's what they can use, so it's going to happen. But how much war has to happen before the nuclear exchange? Look at Ukraine. All the fighting men in that country are basically dead, right? And nobody's dropped a nuke yet. Point being, you might see some crap take place, and it doesn't get to that point yet when there's the nuclear exchange, which is going to usher in a peace deal shortly after it, however long that nuclear exchange, World War III issue takes place, right? And Gog and Magog, I believe, and several other things are only mentioned from one perspective in the Bible as taking place, like Ezekiel 38, 39, right? The Gog and Magog war, I believe that'll be an aspect of World War III, and since it's all on Israel and stuff like that, there's no reason to talk to the rest of the world or America or whatever else is happening. It's going to be taking place all at the same time. It'll be relatively short, and then one of these years, very close, they're going to start the peace treaty, which will happen in the fall, because it ends in the fall, because of the last feast days that get fulfilled on the date, which God told me on Feast of Trumpets in 2018, when he pulled me into the dimension where the snowflakes were coming down, and the first one that touched my shoulder said, Feast of Trumpets trumpets isn't for the rapture, it's for the second coming. They blow it when we come back. I'm like, whoa, awesome, which I've shared with you guys before, right? And taught me a lesson, because I was thinking for a long time that the Feast of Trumpets, definitely back during the early Scotty Clark days and stuff like that, that it might be for the rapture itself, and I was taught differently directly by God. So anyways, and I've shared the light on that for quite some time, but no, that this stuff's really, it's really going to take place. It's really happening. So don't be discouraged on that end, or think it's going to be, because you heard somebody say it's still going to be years off and there's lots of things that need to take place, stuff like that. No, this stuff can happen in a second, and God's literally pulling the leaders that aren't and haven't and have ran their course out of the way, because he's got new people that are going to start standing up. I have no idea who these guys are going to be. I want to get out of here, honestly. I want to do what I'm supposed to do. I was made specifically for war, and everything else that I can do and have done, because God made me a Renaissance man. Yes, I can do it, but my calling is war, and the only one that's going to satisfy me is with God, Armageddon, and cleaning house, all right? Which is going to get into the discussion of this video, because this has all been a prelude. And just a couple things that I wanted to touch on before I actually got started on the video, alright? And I apologize that it's been a while, like I say, working, and I'll tell you what, you drive 500 or 600 miles in a day, and you get to a stop, the last thing you want to do is try and make a video for anybody. If there's even internet in that spot, you want to go to sleep, alright? So anyways, I try to when I can, and then I don't know, and hopefully if there's internet in this place, I'll be able to upload it using my phone or something like that. But anyways, so here we go. Okay, so you guys have heard me say it before. 2018, I'm coming out of the theater, right? There's a UFO hovering over town. I've always got my head in the clouds. It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm the only one looking up in the whole parking lot as people are leaving. I catch sight of the UFO. I start to walk back to my truck. I notice that it notices me. I have a telepathic connection with it. Only time it's ever happened with UFOs, and I've seen lots of them. It knew who I was in the future, and it was keeping its distance, almost like fear, standoffish, right? I'm like, what the heck? I had no idea who it was, what it was, or anything like that, but I felt its thoughts, whether it was the inhabitants inside the ship itself, or whatever else. So I go back to my truck, I'm watching it, I'm like, I swear if this thing gets any closer, I'm going to rebuke it out of the sky, right? That's what I'm thinking to myself. So I get in my truck and I drive off. This thing's been hovering over town for a while, Grand Junction, Colorado. And then it goes out over the desert, out over the book cliffs, and takes off, right? And I watched the whole thing happen. And I thought about it for years, and I've shared it before, you know, how interesting it was. And it's brought up some different ideas and stuff like that. The fact that it knew who I was in the future, and it was keeping its distance, right? And this isn't the only time that I've heard of stuff like this. Recently, I've heard of some interesting stories. I don't know if I'll end up telling them, but inside of some extremely dark occult, they, in the spiritual, can attack certain Christians that are lukewarm and stuff like that, no problem. But others that aren't even saved yet, they have a block around them. They get saved in the future, and because of that, God has put a hedge of protection around them so that they actually can't attack them, because he knows their future. And it just gets back to what I've said before. God will do anything to reach us. He will turn back time, send people in. He bends space and time for each individual to save us. He cares so much, it's unbelievable. So by the time that they're actually tossed into hell, they have done everything they can to say, no, we hate you, and we don't want to have anything to do with you no matter what, which is completely mind-blowing to me and disgusting, but it's how it is. And they're shaking their fists all the way in the bowl judgments in the last part of the tribulation, so it's true. But he'll do anything. And the cult has seen it, and they know. They've seen people that are like kids or whatever, and they're not even saved yet, but they will be in the future, and they have a hedge of protection around them. So it's very interesting, right? But whatever was up with this UFO, it knew who I was in the future, and it's keeping its stand back, right? And I've thought about it for a long time, thought about some different things. Well, this comes into a new story that I heard a couple weeks ago, and I had to share it with you guys, all right? What happens right now, and I've talked about it before. Let me grab my Bible, 2 seconds. Okay, perfect. So listening to this story. It was on Redacted. It was a couple weeks ago. And he was doing an interview with a kid that had been abducted a few times. I think 9 times or so when he was younger. And taken out of his house back in the 90s. And he wanted to bring it forward finally. But during the abductions, the aliens would come. They'd walk him outside the house. His parents would be asleep. They'd take him up into the ship. They'd do experiments and stuff like that. And he would kind of keep his mouth shut, right? And finally, on the last one, he talked to him and asked him some questions from frustration because he had it, and they talked back to him, and they told him a few things, and I want to share it with you. I've talked about what we get changed into. It's going to be what you can't even possibly imagine. I got to feel the new body when I was taken up in the rapture in that vision, right? And the power, the prestige, the awesomeness, the joy, it's just ass-kicking beyond belief, okay? And anything that I could say is like, it's kind of like undermining it, the amount of power that I'm talking about. It's like Superman stuff. You can take battleship rounds to the chest. You can take out armies. It's legendary stuff. And of course, it's what you need. It's what you need to have to clean house. If you knew what the bad guys have, what they've been planning on, what they've done, I mean, it's only amplified more and more from them knowing 400 years in advance that Israel's going to come into Canaan and take it from them, and then fortifying the cities with the Nephilim, to the flood. And them going off planet, God sending in the Nibiru star system and taking out Rahab between Mars and Jupiter, as well as Mars, blasting Venus, blasting the moon, and causing a worldwide flood here by hitting us with an asteroid that cracked us open like a grapefruit, right? Just one thing after another, but they've still planned, and they've done the same thing for Armageddon in the 1,000-year reign. And I've said it before, I'm like, the way that they've prepped, we're going to need dispatching. My point being, there's so many bad guys that they've created demonically and everything else. You can't cram them all in the Valley of Megiddo. There's too many. There's going to be a crap ton for sure. And Jesus is going to leave the place a bloody mess. Okay? But there's other guys, backup plans, off planets, dimensions. It's crazy. We're going to find out that the warrior, the rarest that seems to be in the Christian community that God has created, is going to have an extremely important purpose. Why they're hated now beyond all measure. Anything with honor and battle, the Christian community detests. That's why I'm hated. All right? But I'm telling you, it's going to have a purpose that's beyond anything anybody else can possibly understand. And when it comes down to it, it's always battle, the warrior. It's always the upper echelon. Kings will stop in their tracks when their city's about to be besieged and the warrior has the power to stop it. Trust me, everybody stops for the warrior. All right, it's the ultimate reward and prestige, and it has a purpose. But yet, right now, it hasn't been fully. It's not used. All right, but anyways, it has a purpose. And talking about this, how much is going to have to be cleaned up? And are they all going to be cleaned up before the 1,000 years starts? Or is there still going to be more that's going on, right? And it brings into something that I've discussed before, which is the very verse I'm about to use right now, right? Are these guys planning on skipping around Armageddon through time travel and then trying to come back during the 1,000 years, basically bypassing their whole judgment, right? At least to an extent. And I've used this verse before, just like in Mark when Jesus is talking to the crowd and he says, there's some of you standing here that will not taste death until they see me coming back. And all right, and your church preachers and pastors will say, it's talking about the Mount of Transfiguration, which happens next, right? However, in the Romanian Sphinx story, when they got to check the Hall of Records, sure enough, that's exactly what's taking place. Non-Christians writing a book mentioning the very same thing. Hey, that's us. We're there. We're at the crucifixion. We're by the cross. I can see us. The guy is American, right? In disguise. And they're watching it. And these people are time traveling back. And some of them are going to see the judgment happening and everything else. And God's literally speaking of it. There's so many different little hints and cool things in the Bible like that, right? That most people don't know about. This point being, from this parable that I'm about to read right now, is exactly on this topic. So them trying to skip around the tribulation at Armageddon and then come back in after things have calmed down. Here it is, all right? Matthew 22:11. And when the king came into the guests, he saw that there was a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he said unto him, Friend, how camest thou in hither, not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servant, Bind him hand and foot and take him away and cast him into outer darkness, where there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. All right. And I'm like, wow, that parable right there is so perfect for this very discussion. Are there going to be off-worlders while this planet gets cleaned up, turns into capital hub for the universe? And what God has planned after the 1,000 years and stuff like that, we don't even know, but it's going to be awesome. He's big on growing families, doing gardening and creating all kinds of stuff. He loves it, and he's made a really big area to make it happen in, all right? Inside this dimension that we're in right now. Well, anyways, point being, these guys skipping around this stuff, right? Well, I heard this story, and it's exactly on that topic, all right? So the guy's getting abducted, and the kid finally talks to the aliens, and they tell him, they're like, what are you doing? And they say, we're experimenting, we have to get this stuff. And not long in the future, this was in the 90s when this was happening, not long in the future, you guys are going to be merging yourself with biometrics and other things like that. Hint, hint. All right, and we can't do anything at that point, so we have to come back before it or whatever else, right? So it's like, well, are you guys aliens? And the alien tells him, the gray. It might seem like that, but we're actually Earthlings. We're just in the distant future, and or whatever else, right? And I believe he's lying to him at that point. But then he says something very, very interesting, and I was about flabbergasted when I heard it. And he said, we can't come to Earth in the future. That's why we come back in time to do the experiments and get you. We can't come to Earth in the future because the Earthlings on Earth in the future are hostile to us. So we can't show up. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm like, are you kidding me? That is exactly some information that I've been waiting to hear and wondering about. Could some of these guys be off planet, still waiting? At the end of the 1,000 years, God wipes out the universe and he makes it anew. But are some of these guys still around there and basically not allowed for that time, possibly, to come back? And this very parable right here, all right? I'm going to read it again. St. Matthew 22. I'm going to start with verse 9. Go ye therefore in the highways, and as many shall find bid to the marriage. So the servants went out on the highways and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good, and the wedding was furnished with guests. And then the king came to see the guests, and saw there was a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he said unto him, Friend, how camest thou in hither, not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then the king said to the servant, Bind him hand and foot, take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. All right. Point being, these guys are time traveling, skipping around the judgment that would be happening on Earth, off world, and then thinking they could sneak back on, and they can't. Because as soon as they get caught, they're bound hand and foot, all right? And that is exactly what the alien told him. The kid, which he had no idea, right? He's not a Christian or anything like that. And he said that we can't come to the Earth in the future because the Earthlings here are hostile to us, all right? And I found that extremely interesting. I have a video clip, an artist rendering, basically, of what that might look like. So, I'll let you guys enjoy this real fast here. Check it out.
Rude, no manners at all. You're done.
So Piccolo's become even stronger. Man, I'm glad he's on my side for a change. That was incredible.
All right. As you can see with this, all right. it's kind of a joke. But any aliens trying to grab any kids in the future, 1,000-year reign, people with new bodies and stuff like that, it's not going to fly. They're going to get blown away, all right, annihilated. Or like this verse, grab him foot and bind him and cast him to outer darkness, all right? And it's a very interesting idea, and I had to share it. I've been thinking about it for a couple weeks, and I couldn't believe hearing that story. I'm like, holy mackerel, that really quite possibly answer some questions, because I know a lot of them are going to get annihilated in Armageddon. God's not joking when he says there's never going to be a war like it, and it's going to be the biggest. It's going to be taking place on multiple fronts. There's dispatching that takes place. People aren't just going to be standing there. Those that ride back with God are going to be cleaning house in multiple different areas and places, and the battle is going to take multiple days, okay? But afterwards, are there going to be some people that are out in parts of the universe and things like that? And after hearing the story, there's definitely a possibility that might be the case. And because of this, and the infiltration of multiple dimensions and levels and all kinds of things like that these guys have inhabited and used as backdoor plants, just like a computer program, viruses that have lodged themselves into places, God's recreating the whole thing after the 1,000 years and just burning it all up, cleaning it up, so that if there is any hiding, plotting, or whatever else, that it's not going to work. And like I say, I mean, you hear the forces of darkness, they think that they're going to win. They have every plan and backup plan that you can think of that they have thought up to do. And this would just be another one of them. But anyways, I had to share it because I thought it was interesting. And anyways, I just wanted to talk about that along with a few other things. So, if this video gives you any insight to anything or some stuff to think about, some stuff to pray about, of course, take everything to God with prayer. Definitely do it, but hopefully I open your minds to a few new things today. And don't be discouraged, all right? The preachers, the bigwigs that have run their course and their time stole from people, taught them lukewarm gospel, it's coming to an end. And just like Perry Stone had said, they actually are dying off, except what he's hoping for isn't going to happen. It's not going to bring back a next round of bigwig preachers and pastors. It's going to bring and usher in the underground church, which is the only way it's actually going to thrive. And from there, it actually will take off. And this is going to happen during the tribulation, only pointing towards the fact that we really are that close. So God bless. I'll catch you guys next time on the Unleashing. I'll see you in the air. All right. One of the others, things are getting close. So keep looking up and don't be discouraged. God bless. Bye.